Restaurant Unstoppable, episode 724 with Jeremy, Mandrell, and Anne Ng.
Pineapples.
With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guests, Jeremy, Mandrell, and Anne Ng. Are you two feeling unstoppable today?
Yes, we are.
Yes, that's what I like to hear. So Jeremy Mandrell and Anne Ng met while working at working for Thomas Keller at Bouchon Bakery in Napa Valley, California, and have been baking together ever since. They honed their skills in different kitchens around San Francisco Bay Area before moving to San Antonio in the summer of 2010. In 2011, they met entrepreneur Charlie, say his name for me real quick.
Biedenharn.
Thank you very much. Who joined them in forming Bakery Lorraine. Today, they have scaled Bakery Lorraine to 5 locations, and they've also opened a donut shop, which I recently saw that you guys closed. I'd love to get into the nitty-gritty of that and what you learned from that experience. But before we really dive into your story, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Well, we always like mistakes stop here. We don't like to let people see our mistakes, and so we really try and stop them as far as pastry goes before they walk out the door.
Mistakes stop here. So why is that so important to you?
You know, even if you've been doing the same job for years and years, you know, there will be a day when you're not having a good day.
Yeah.
And you slip up. You know, people make mistakes. We acknowledge that. The important thing is that you learn from it.
Yes.
And it stops there.
Yes.
You know?
I think it's so important to know that it's okay to make a mistake, but only one time. Right?
Right.
I love it. Great way to get this thing started. So usually when I have two guests, I divide the conversation to focus on each person until we meet up, all right? So you both have kind of similar stories. You both went to culinary school. I know you were a military family. I know you were traveling a lot around with your parents in Asia, right? Mm-hmm. Correct? So who wants to go first to kind of tell us the background story? Anne's looking at you, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'll go
I think
first.
she selected you. So yeah, get into when did you know that this was going to be your path?
Actually, when I got out of the military, I worked in restaurants and toyed around with the idea. It just never seemed like a right fit for me at those certain times. And then after I got out of the military, I decided to go to culinary school. I had money for college and decided to go to culinary school. And I knew then, when I was in the Navy, I moonlighted at a little bakery down the street from me, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Nice. So what was it about this industry that made you so quickly fall in love?
It's exciting. There's always stuff going on. I love baking. I love eating pastries, clearly. I grew up in my grandmother used to, she was a farmer's wife and put on these huge spreads of food and, homemade baked breads and pies. And so I kind of grew up with that and just kind of stuck.
Now, I know you traveled a lot. Did that influence you at being a part of a military family, getting to experience those different cultures?
Oh, yeah, of course. Being able to, my mom had friends from all over the world and got recipes from them, so I was exposed to a lot of different flavors, and we try to incorporate that in our baking and integrate with our community now.
Okay, and you went to culinary school, San Diego. What was the name of the school? Remind me.
It was Art Institute of San Diego.
Any key mentors during that time that really helped cement this journey, this path that you're on?
Chef Tina Liu, a very tough instructor, good friend and mentor.
In what way did she help form the man you are today?
I think just her commitment to excellence and being as strict. I worked very good in a strict environment. Military was great for me. She was great for me, and so just kind of enforcing quality.
How does she go about doing that? Like, how do you enforce quality in a way that's not distasteful, like, or not off-putting, and reinforcing positive behavior? Like, how did she? What was her approach?
I mean, I don't know. She was very stern. She was very demanding, very stern, and I kind of thrive in that kind of environment.
Nice. How else did she influence you?
She was able to open my eyes to all kinds of pastry and flavors and
Got you.
A ton of skills.
Nice. So I know that you guys both went to culinary school. I know you met at Thomas Keller's restaurant, Bouchon. Was there anything going on between when you guys graduated culinary school, or was that I know that you were working in a laboratory, right?
Mm-hmm. I was.
So how many years elapsed before you guys graduated and came together at Bouchon? Bouchon.
I had gone to culinary school before I took the job in the laboratory.
Okay.
See, I come from a Chinese Filipino family,
Gotcha.
very traditional, and there are a lot of expectations career-wise on you, and especially as a woman, they told me I could never work in a kitchen. It's a man's world.
Oh. How did that make you feel?
It made me angry.
I bet.
It did. And it made me want to prove them wrong.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm happy you did.
Yeah. They told me I couldn't do it, and I wanted to. I thought I could take my degree in biochemistry and somewhat come up with a compromise, working in a food laboratory in East LA. But after a few months of doing that, I realized, it's not the same thing. This
Why?
isn't
what wasn't right about it?
It wasn't what I was passionate about.
What were you passionate about?
I love the whole process of making something with my hands, like a cake or a cookie, and giving it to a friend or feeding my family with it and seeing the reaction,
Yes.
So yes, you do that in the lab too, but when you're testing for food shelf life, it's not quite the same.
You give them a cookie and their response is your cookie, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
I love it. So you graduated. I know you went to school in the Philippines, hotel and restaurant school in the Philippines.
I did.
Then you went to the labs, right?
Yes.
How much time elapsed from, how long were you in the labs for?
I was only in the lab for about 4 months, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but then I just kept actively looking for job openings online. You know,
so you knew pretty soon that this wasn't for you.
Yes, I think I didn't want to acknowledge it at the time, but at the back of my mind, I knew.
Okay, so back over to Jeremy. You graduate college. What were you doing right out of college?
I immediately moved to Napa. My family lives up there, and I went to Bouchon to apply, and I sat in the car for a day because I was too nervous.
Oh
and
my
I went back home.
Why were you nervous? Get into this. What was going through your mind?
This is, I think, the height of Thomas Keller's.
Right.
You know.
So what year is it at this point?
Babes, help me.
It was.
So you came to San Antonio in 2009, right?
06, 07?
Oh gosh.
Approximately 2005, 2006, 2007.
Yeah, right around there.
Gotcha.
It would have been
No.
2006 or 2007.
It was later. This was 08 when we worked
Okay.
at Bouchon.
So you guys only spent a year at Bouchon then, because you came to San Antonio in
Yes.
2009.
No, it
no,
was 07,
we came to San Antonio 2010.
Okay.
I was at Bouchon for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So you graduate culinary school, and your first stop is Bouchon.
Yeah. So I sat in the car nervously and didn't go in, and then I came back the next day and applied and then staged. And
How long did you sit in your car before that first day?
Oh, probably hours. I mean, I got out, I walked up, walked back. It was pretty nerve-wracking. It was very intimidating at the time.
What were the thoughts going through your mind?
That I'm not good enough.
Oh man.
A lot of insecurities.
How did you talk yourself off that cliff? Because I feel like that's something that we all probably feel at some point of our life when we're taking a leap to do something good for our careers. How did you talk yourself into overcoming that fear?
I just went back the next day and said, this is what I came all the way up here for, and this is why I went to culinary school, and this is the best, and this is where I need to be.
So you finally knock on the door, right? What did the conversation look like?
It's a little bit funny because they had multiple positions open. They said, do you want to work bread side or pastry side? And I was like, I don't care. I would love to work either. And they said, well, the pastry chef's here. And I was like, pastry chef.
Okay.
So pastry side. So yeah.
Beautiful. So reflecting back at this time, like when you were approaching Bouchon, did you have a connection there? Did you have a professor that was introducing you?
I did know a former classmate of mine that worked there.
Beautiful. Do me a favor, pull that mic just a little bit closer.
Sorry about
No, you're
that.
doing great. You're doing great. What other information should we need if we want to approach a restaurant that's at the height of its existence, right? And we're nervous, we're green, we're so wet behind the ears. Like, what advice do you have for that person to make
Just
it
do
happen?
it. I mean, everybody comes in like that, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not intimidated and you're not scared, then you might be a little bit stupid. I mean, it's a very intense work environment, and
If you're not timid, if you're not a little scared, you might be a little stupid.
or you're lying.
No, I love it. I love it. So now I guess let's pivot back over to Anne. Were you as nervous as Jeremy was, or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely was. I remember buying the French laundry cookbook back when I was in high school, and it was like this.
What high school kids buying the French laundry cookbook, by the way? That's incredible. I love that. Great, good for you. Keep going.
But I remember when it came in the mail, I was just, wow, I had to, it was a special moment. It was like unwrapping like this crazy, awesome present.
How did you handle those recipes being a high school student? Were you able to tackle them pretty good? Move that mic right in front of your face for me too, please. Thank you.
I was pretty ambitious back then. Like, I was very stubborn. Yes, even if I didn't know what I was doing, I would try to fumble my way through it.
But that's the only way. You got to just try. You're gonna fall on your face a bunch of times, but every
Yeah.
time you try it, you're gonna do a little aspect of it better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you knew from a very early age you wanted to work for Thomas Keller. Is that a safe assumption?
Yes, but it was aspirational. I didn't think that I ever could.
Okay. So why baker? Like why baking? What was your reason for going to Bouchon?
I work well. See, I have a science background.
Mm-hmm.
I work well with method and technique.
Yep.
And pastry offers that.
Yes.
I think it's a good, it's a good fusion of good food and that scientific approach that I like
love
to
it.
work with.
So you guys are finding yourself. You're both at Thomas Keller's restaurant. Who got there first? I'm curious.
I did.
You
He
did?
got there first.
Okay. How long were you there before Anne came on board?
A couple months.
Okay. So what was it like? How did that experience influence your operations today?
That was the hardest job I'd ever had up until we opened our own bakery.
Paint the picture of hard.
I remember, going in and starting my shift right on time and still not being able to finish everything that I was supposed to have finished in those 8 hours every day. And after 2 weeks of doing that, you just break down, you cry. You're like, oh my gosh, like, what have I gotten myself into? I'm just not cut up for this. I'm not good enough. I sat down, I remember, and I made a timeline of how, markers of how I was supposed to finish everything in the 8 hours that I was given. Yeah, and it was grueling.
Well, I know ultimately you guys almost like this almost ruined your culinary experience, right? And as far as like you guys, it must have been an incredible experience to work with that level of caliber. But at the same time, it almost just, it seems like it kind of discouraged you at one point where you guys thought you were done with the food industry and baking altogether. Is that not accurate?
You know, I think you go through ups and downs, highs and lows.
There's
Yeah.
more to that story too.
Well, tell us more to the story.
Well, at least from my point, same thing. 2 weeks in, and this is back when you clocked out and you still worked to get all your work done.
Yeah.
And so after 2 weeks of 12-hour shifts, we came in and just determined to get it done in 8 hours because I was tired of being there for 12 hours and exhausted. We both worked the overnight. And so I made the decision, and the next day I got all my work done in 8 hours. And after that,
You made what decision?
to get all my work done in 8 hours.
So
To not stay a minute
Okay.
past what I was getting paid for.
how did that go?
It worked, but it took flipping a mental switch to make it happen. And I saw it happen with her, and I've seen it happen with multiple
All at once.
employees that work there. The first 2 weeks are really horrible and grueling, and then you get it. Just something clicks, and you're able to get your work done.
Okay.
But while we were there, we experienced the recession. Eventually, Anne lost her job. I lost all my hours.
Okay.
I was like kind of a call-in basis only. I went to work for Sonoma Mission Inn, and then I had to take a hospital job just to be able to afford, gas and cost of living. And so I was working insane hours, getting 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, and I finally called it quits and moved to Texas and took
Okay.
a job with a tech company.
So why Texas? Well, what was actually, before we get into that, anything we can unpackage from your time, any lessons about standards? Honestly, do you think it was unhealthy, the standards that they operate at, or is it a necessary evil to get your, to build your resume? Like, dive into that. Like,
I think it's incredibly impressive what he was able to accomplish. Owning a bakery now and trying to keep those standards ourselves, I don't know how he did it. I'd love to pick his brain and just, how did you do that? And how did you, how did you,
I think it has a lot to do with the people he's able to attract onto himself. It's amazing how many people I've interviewed that have touched Thomas Keller some way, somehow, that have come through
Yes.
one of his restaurants.
Yeah.
And he cranks out owners and operators. It's incredible how he does that. And I don't know if it's just because you're able to tie your brand to Thomas Keller, so then people are like, oh, like he must or she must know what the job done right looks like because of this pedigree. So like, we'll invest in you. You're basically, you might be giving up a year of your life and you might be miserable in the process, but like, what is that experience going to grant you access to?
right. The level of detail at his restaurants is just incredible. At the bakery, the brass fittings for the water heater were polished daily.
Jesus.
It's just incredible.
How does he keep that level of excellence, the standard of excellence? What processes are put in place to make sure those things are happening every day?
The organization has the discipline to say, this is our standard, we will not compromise or bend. Yeah. And when you go into an organization like that, you work with extremely driven people. Every single person that walks through those doors, they're walking in there with a purpose. They know why they're there. It's not just a job to them.
It's their
They
life.
know this is their life. This
Yeah.
is their career. So everyone's extremely driven. And I think that drive is what made everyone, like all the alumni of that organization, like just, become unstoppable.
So he was,
once
I
they left.
love it, yeah. So his ability to meet these standards was because of the people he was able to attract onto himself and the caliber of individual he attracted onto himself.
Yes.
And-
It's extremely competitive.
But how do we recreate that today? Like, what is the equivalent? He got all these not accolades and recognition from industry awards. What else can you do to attract onto yourself great people?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. We never received, I don't think we ever received direct pressure from his organization. It was self-pressure. Nobody wanted to
Yeah.
be the guy that messed up.
Yeah.
How do you create that culture? How do we recreate that in our?
I want to know.
I think it's just like if your brand has enough presence, if your brand's represented enough through as many channels as Thomas Keller's brand was presented, it's just like the brand becomes bigger than the person, right? And I think you could say the same thing about Danny Meyer. You know, like he has like in Thomas Keller, their presence is just so magnificent throughout the industry that people know, like in anywhere, and like you're just gonna attract. It's like a moth to a light, you know. And I think only a few people will ever be able to get to that point.
Right.
But there are some other things we can do to maintain standards. You got to attract onto yourself people that have the same level of standard. But once they're there, like, is it just an unspoken culture? Or are there systems and processes in place that where boxes being checked to make sure that the brass thing got polished?
Yes, I mean, definitely, yes. There are procedures. Everyone knows their job and what they're supposed to do. But, you know, to translate this into pastry, that is one thing that we try to do every day when we work at the commissary kitchen and we train our guys. You know, we tell them, hey, look, mistakes happen, but the customers cannot see that. You have to have the discipline to look back at your work and say and decide for yourself, is that good enough? You know, because that is someone's splurge at the end of the day. You know, it might not be a lot of money. It might be $3 for a cookie, but that's a lot. And the fact that they're deciding to come into your bakery and invest that time and money in your product, you should care about that.
I love it. And I love just like something that you said. One thing we can do to maintain these cultures, right, is to develop a certain language. And for you guys, that language is that good enough? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, you wanted a mantra. We do have one there. If there's any question, there's no question.
Yes.
And so most of the time we find ourselves like, oh, is this good enough? If you're asking that question, you already know the answer.
Yeah, if you're
It's
questioning
not.
it, exactly. And that's, again, like back to like all cultures have rituals and languages, right? And you need to develop these languages so that people can make decisions for themselves, right? They don't need to check with somebody, but they know because you gave them that language.
Most of the time it's our own laziness.
This is the stuff I'm looking for, yeah.
Most of the time it's our own laziness trying to talk us out of not having to make it again.
Yeah, I feel that. So when you got out of Bouchon, it wasn't necessarily because you were burnt out. You were feeling the pressure of the industry, but it was also the economic condition that forced you to have to...
It was definitely the economic condition.
I'm happy we cleared that up. Thank you for bringing that up. So I guess let's talk about, so you ended up moving to Texas. Why Texas?
My sister lived here and worked for a tech company, and she'd been bugging me for years to come out and get a job with them. And I was like, I'm kind of doing this culinary thing. And then I just got incredibly burnt out and tired of not making any money. And so I left.
Okay.
And we were kind of at a questionable time in our relationship.
So at this point, you're dating. You're together.
Yeah.
Got you. So you come back to Texas. You're both working at the same tech company? Is that what happened?
Not originally. We both ended up working at the same tech company, but not originally.
All right, we're back. And I feel like this is like the origin story, really, for Bakery Lorraine. So you notice these farmers markets. Take us to that point.
I had always loved going to farmers markets in California, and I see a lot of small business owners over there selling their stuff. So, I mean, at that point, it was a pipe dream, right? California's just, it's hard. The barrier to entry there is very high.
Yeah.
So I never thought we'd be able to make it in a farmer's market there. But when we came here, there was the Pearl Farmers Market. We had tried to get into that because I was actually working at the Pearl. I had worked for Andrew Weissman at Il Sonio back then. And we really loved the farmers market at Pearl. We'd drive up to Austin and go to the farmers markets there. And when we heard that someone was starting a new one at the quarry, at the Whole Foods parking lot, we jumped at the opportunity, went out there and talked to the guys who were running it to see if they'd be open to having us. At that point, they already had a couple of bakers there, I
Yeah.
think. So they were like, I don't think we need any more bakers. But then one of the guys told us, well, you know how to make a ricotta cheesecake? And we're like, yeah. So we made one. We dropped it off the next week, and then we didn't revisit that whole farmer's market bid for months. And then finally one day we decided to just drop by for a visit, and they recognized us, and they were like, oh my gosh, we've been looking for you guys. They loved the cheesecake, and they invited us to join the farmer's market.
So what was the point of asking about specifically ricotta cheesecake? Was that a test to see that if you could do, is that like a traditionally difficult cheesecake to create, or did they just...
No.
I think he just liked
Yeah,
him a
he
lot.
just
Okay.
liked it.
So he was just trying to get a cheesecake out of it.
Yeah, which he did.
Nice. So wait, is there an underlying embedded lesson in that? This approach you guys took, like, is it just don't take, like, how many times did you try? How many times did you ask? How persistent were you? Was it just this one time that you asked and then you dropped your cheesecake off and it was
No.
all they needed?
We tried to get into the Pearl Farmers Market. We filed our application, we went through all the steps, and they said no.
Okay.
So, okay. I mean, we weren't really put down by that. We understand. They already had a few bakers. So we
Yeah.
knew we just needed to find the opportunity elsewhere. And to be frank, we never thought that we'd turn it into a full-time job. We had full-time jobs,
Yeah.
and this was going to be a once-a-week thing because we missed it. At that point, we were already at the tech company,
Okay.
but we still loved baking.
I was
That
curious,
never
yeah.
left.
So when you guys came to San Antonio, was it ever on the table that you guys were going to open a bakery out here, or did it just kind of happen?
Not at all.
So approaching the farmer's market was just kind of a way to scratch the baking itch, to
Yes.
keep it in your life. and to-
Absolutely.
We had been baking for people at the tech company as well.
Okay.
And during our time there, we just
I'm sure
kind
they
of
love
missed it.
that.
Yeah, and they, we, I think, just weren't finding the kind of pastries that we wanted to find here
Right.
once we moved here.
Right.
Gotcha.
And before the tech company, I tried to look for a job around town for a pastry chef, and they don't really exist very much.
Okay.
They didn't back then.
Okay.
It's difficult.
So,
yeah.
so you guys were never planning on opening a restaurant. You just wanted to flex this baking muscle that you developed and you had. You wanted to keep it active.
Right.
You drop off this ricotta pie. They love it, and that was your invitation.
Yes.
Were you just doing ricotta pies, or were you baking everything you guys wanted
Actually,
to do?
we weren't doing those at all. What we had started making were pies. We do fruit pies, cream pies, and a few breakfast pastries like muffins.
We used to have to submit them a menu, so we didn't. There was a
No
kind of a
competition.
no
There was no
complete
conflict.
thing
Yeah.
every week of what we planned to do, and really that was the R&D for what we have today. I
Wait,
mean,
get into how that became your R&D.
we changed the menu every week, so every week was some sort of new pastry, new pie, new
Yeah.
quiche, something new every week. And just in doing that, we found the things that worked, the things that didn't
Okay.
work.
Yeah, and
but
what was great about that whole process too was we got instant feedback.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. I love this getting proof of concept, right? But it's interesting because you weren't even trying to get it, which I think is kind of funny because you had never had the intent to open a bakery. Were you still trying to do, I mean, you were selling these bakeries, you're making some type of profit, I'm assuming. So were you just trying to increase your profit right there at the farmer's market? Is that kind of the R&D you were doing, or
It really
was it just a
I don't even
byproduct?
think it was a money thing at that point. It was
Right.
it
We
was
had
more like a
full-time
hobby.
jobs. We
yeah,
didn't,
you just want to see
We
what
got
made people
paid
the most
well.
happy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just wanted to see, well, what else can we do? What else can we make?
So at what point did this hobby become, like, when did you say we should take a stab at this? We should try to make this our full-time thing.
There
We-
was
Oh, go ahead.
There was one morning when we showed up at the farmer's market and we were running late. That happened a lot back in those days. We were running late, and when we got there, our friend who had been helping us out, Kelly, he had already had our tent set up
Okay.
and our tables, like everything was already set up, and there was a line of about 25
People waiting for you.
waiting, and the market had just opened.
Oh, that's a sign right there.
Right.
There was nobody at any other stall. It was just this line, and we just started laughing. Hysterically, because we were tired and we couldn't believe what we were seeing.
What we were seeing, it was
I'm curious,
incredible.
why were you guys late? Tell us the truth. Were you out partying the night before? What was going on there?
Oh, we were baking.
We were baking,
So
yeah.
So she worked in the mornings and I worked in the evenings.
Gotcha.
And then when I got off, she would start when she
Yeah.
got
Gotcha,
off,
gotcha.
and then I would continue, and we baked all through the night.
So, I mean, obviously, your pastries, what you were baking was delicious. That I'm sure had something to do with the line. But what else was building this line?
What else was building it? Customer interaction, having that one-on-one interaction with all our customers. We knew everybody who came. We developed a lot of regulars at the farmers market.
What's your approach to taking care of that customer early on? Like when you don't know somebody, like how are you just asking questions? Are you just paying attention? Like
We love the interaction, and we love pastry, and so we love educating people on
There you go.
pastry.
yeah.
Right. I think they can feel how much you love it. And then another thing that we've always believed in is being generous. So, we've literally had to, this is down the road after we opened our first bakery
That's a
at
good
Grayson. Yeah, but we've literally had to chase someone down the street because they came in and balked at why your cookies are so expensive, and walked out. But we're like, you know what? We want him to taste and make a sound judgment after he's tried it to see why it doesn't cost $1 for our jumbo cookies.
Yeah.
How
much were your jumbo cookies priced at? I'm curious.
They're $3.
Okay.
Yeah, but we use all top shelf ingredients. And he had that cookie. He graciously accepted it, and guess what? He came back.
I bet.
He turned into a regular.
I think that's a really important lesson. It's something that we need to be really cemented in, and we all need to agree on this one thing. Charge what the product's worth. And I think we've gotten in trouble as an industry price gouging each other, trying to be a little bit lower than the next guy. And as a result, our whole industry, we've twisted the expectation, the value of food as a result. And
Right.
I think we need to really, if we're going to see change and we're going to transform the industry, we need to teach people how to do menu engineering and how to figure out to the penny what that thing is worth. And then be steadfast, stick to our guns, and teach people the value of food.
Yes, absolutely.
Same, quantity or quality over quantity.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can get, from Costco, you can get a pie this big for like $5 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we sell ours for $26. It's a 9-inch pie. But the difference is stark. So
Yeah. But I think we're only going to get there if we collectively, don't put out crap.
yeah,
Exactly.
So
that's the goal.
when did this entrepreneur find you? There's an entrepreneur in your life, a third leg to this table that we haven't really gotten into yet. Did he start planting seeds? Who approached who? How did this partnership form?
So Charlie's girlfriend at the time ordered some macarons from us for his birthday, and we delivered them to her. And before we even got home, they're like, "Oh, these are great. Can we have some more? Can we have a dozen more?" And we're like, "Sure." And then that was followed by a text that said, "Can we have 2 dozen more?" And which we obliged them. And then our original plan, we were going to do a food truck, kind of not in the traditional sense.
Yeah,
but
I've never heard of a
something-
bakery pastry food truck.
So we wanted to have a really small footprint, like not a Sprinter or anything like that, more like a transit van, small,
Yeah.
and be highly mobile with a espresso machine and just stick and move to businesses and deliver pastry and coffee for coffee breaks. And Charlie was on board with that. He had previously tried to do a food truck, and it fell through, and so he was still interested in breaking into the industry.
Okay.
And so we started talking. And another good friend of ours who's a restaurateur in San Antonio kind of let us know, you don't have to spend $500,000 to open a brick and mortar. You guys know that, right? And
Who was this entrepreneur or this restaurant?
Chad Carey.
Okay. So what was the point that he was trying to make?
That on a small, tight budget, you can still open a brick and mortar, and that would probably be a better thing for us than trying to do a food truck.
Why would that be better?
Having a home base, just
Yeah.
having your own kitchen to work
Yeah.
out of, that's huge.
I
Yeah.
know a ton
Yeah.
of food truck operators, and it's a rough gig. You know,
Yeah.
it's a
And
constant
It's
hustle.
important to communicate that because I think that the general census out there right now is that it's easier to operate a food truck.
It's
It might be
difficult.
less expensive at 1st, and you have to keep in mind that like the food truck world isn't quite the same either. The people that were having extreme success with food trucks 10 years ago were the only food trucks on scene.
Exactly.
So the fact that there's way more food trucks now, and the fact that it's really not necessarily easier, it's actually more difficult to be mobile. It's harder to have routine and systems in a mobile situation, right?
Right.
I think it's important. Like, what are the other challenges of a food truck that I'm not listing right now that come to your mind?
I mean, the work environment. You know,
Yeah.
Texas gets
Hot.
our summers are yes,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Working
we
in those
have-
trucks is hot work.
Yes,
We had Jay Kim from Cilantro. I don't know if you're familiar with the brand, talking
Yes.
about his time. It's like
Yeah.
if it's 110 degree or 105 degrees outside,
Yeah.
it's like 130 to 120
Yes.
degrees in a food truck, and I'm
Yes.
not exexaggerating.
yeah, we've experienced
know.
those conditions. We've worked in a food truck,
Yeah.
so we know we've been in there, and it is, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So this entrepreneur taught you that there's a way to do it without having to drop $500,000. Was he a part of this partnership? Because we had your partner Charlie and this other. Was he just coaching you? Was he a mentor?
No, he was a customer.
Okay. Okay.
We supplied desserts for his restaurant and brunch pastries on the weekends. No, just a friend.
Okay. And tell me a little bit more about Charlie. It sounds like he's a serial entrepreneur. He tried to do a food truck. Was he in the restaurant industry? Is he still in the restaurant industry? Well, obviously, because
just
he's
with
here.
us.
Yeah.
So he's from San Antonio. He grew
Okay.
up here, and did some traveling for a little bit. Came back and decided he wanted to do something cool, in this town. San Antonio is just growing at
Yeah,
such a rapid
yeah.
pace, and he saw that early on, and he wanted to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves San Antonio, so he just wants to do cool things.
What was he doing before investing in restaurants? I
He
don't know.
actually had a tattoo shop,
Okay.
also here in town. And then it was also at that point in time when he started with us, he decided to get his MBA from
Okay.
UT. Yeah, so I think it was a confluence of a lot of things.
What was it about Charlie that gave you that gut feeling that this guy is right for us?
We sat down, had conversations with him, and it just, I don't know. Some
He's an
things are
incredibly nice
unspoken.
man.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
He's very generous and just a nice guy
Yeah.
all around, and you can just feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that partnership look like? Is he just a financial investor partnership? Does he do any operations?
Oh no, he's active in the company.
Okay. So
Yeah. He takes care of a lot of the financial side of things. Anything back end, because our hands are always so tied to, production and day to day. So he helps with a lot of those.
yeah, and the reason why I'm pushing, trying to find out more about Charlie is because
Yeah.
it's something I say all the time. To be truly competitive in today's market, to wear all the hats that you need to wear to stand out, you need to know how to market.
Absolutely.
You need to be the technician and do the thing really well. You need to be able to manage the people really well. You need the person that's good with the numbers. There's so many things you need to be good
Right.
at in
Yeah.
today's age to stand a chance against even just like the big guys, right?
Yeah.
How did he round you off? What did he have? Like, you guys were clearly the technicians, right? The skilled, the people
Right.
that did the thing.
Right.
What did he bring to the table that you guys needed to execute like you executed?
It definitely the business aspect of it. We're so lucky to have this like triangle. I meet restaurateurs that they did it themselves, or
Yeah.
it's just them and their wives, and so Anne can get lost in the art of pastry and she can make a tart that we would have to sell for $12 and we would not be able to make any money off of it. And Charlie wants us to use cheaper ingredients and get our food costs down, and I'm able to kind of bridge the gap and say, no, we're going to use that, and no, you can't make that tart because we're not going to make any money off of it. And so it all just balances out. It's so nice to have three of us. And we're always in
arbiter.
check. There's no one person that's like a driving force in it. we all keep each other in check and balanced.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's good to have, even if somebody doesn't necessarily agree with what you want to do, to kind of help you like get less polar.
Yeah.
Right. And it's good to have your values and to do things a certain way, but it's also good to have somebody who has a different perspective to help you see something that you might not be considering because of what you're trying to execute. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And he has been very instrumental in helping the business grow. You know, when you're busy, like trying to fulfill all your orders and put up pastries in the morning, there's no time for you to think about, oh, maybe we should hire a bookkeeper to come in and help us. Maybe we should think about hiring an operations manager to take care of this. Maybe we should look at opening another location.
Yeah.
You know? You don't. And that's what he brought to the table.
Because you're nose down, you're doing the thing,
Yes.
right? You're putting all of your energy into doing the thing that you do better. You need those people who are eyes up, right?
Exactly.
So take us through the opening that first restaurant. So you have Charlie, you have you're growing your network within San Antonio, your local, I don't know if they're mentors or colleagues, right? Collaborators, people saying, hey, like, have you considered like a cheaper brick and mortar and starting where you can? I noticed you guys did pop-ups. We didn't really get into pop-ups and the significance of pop-ups. So you had the weekly farmers market. How are you implementing pop-ups? Was this before or after Charlie came on board?
I think it was kind of around the same time
Okay.
that it happened. It's all a blur right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
we didn't
bet.
sleep much
We were very tired about it.
those days.
Yeah.
But
Because you were working full-time on top of this,
Yes,
right?
we were.
At the tech company.
Yes, at the tech company.
crazy.
And we were supplying a few places with pastries.
Okay. So you had some wholesale, not wholesale, but
We had wholesale
wholesale.
accounts.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they did.
Reluctantly.
So
Yeah.
approximately how many wholesale accounts did you guys have?
I think we had
3,
four.
4.
We had 4 at that
Okay.
point, which, I mean, we never actively pursued any of them. The opportunity came and we jumped on it.
Were you supplying mostly like cafes and things of that nature?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah.
2 cafes, 2 restaurants.
So
Yeah.
you both had a full-time job. You're both doing the farmers market. You're doing wholesale and you're doing pop-ups.
Yeah.
So what did these pop-ups look like? Take us through. What was the intention of the pop-ups? What were you trying to execute with them, or beyond just feeding people?
I think it's not so much pop-up as like collaborations. Like we collaborated with the Monterey. We would make some desserts for them, and if they had a special event, a pop-up, then they'd come to us and ask us, hey, we're doing this. Do you guys have any ideas for dessert? Then we'd do that for them.
You guys can't see my face right now because we have these masks on, but I promise you I'm smiling ear to ear. I love this mentality of collaboration, and I think that's such a underutilized skill set, to be able to collaborate and do what you do best and help other businesses round off their product offering. And then, get into this approach of collaboration, really dissect that a little bit more. Give us advice on how to collaborate and how to approach other businesses and what that should look like.
Oh, gosh. Well, especially here in San Antonio, the restaurant community, it used to be very small. So everyone knew from each other and everyone had worked for, one of 3 or 4 chefs around town. So it starts with conversation, and just having the energy, some buzz, some excitement.
Yeah.
And, you just start spitballing ideas and hey, why not?
Yeah.
Let's do
but
this.
What spun off from those collaborations? How did those collaborations serve you?
I mean, we did one with the Monterey. It was a donut fight where we made 2 donuts and they made 2 donuts.
That was a lot of fun.
So it's not just like it's having fun with it and
Oh.
making it a competition.
Yeah, it should
Yes.
totally be fun.
Yeah.
And we opened a donut shop, but
Yeah.
not totally because of that. But
Yeah.
I mean,
but
it was-
there was something else that came out of this collaboration. So we had made a Pop-Tart, which we still do have at the bakery. It's a very popular item. But the guys at the Monterey had wanted a Pop-Tart that was that they'd serve with pears. They wanted kind of like a cheese plate approach. And so we're like,
No, they wanted a pear Pop-Tart to go with the cheese
Yeah,
plate.
that's right. Okay. Yes, they wanted a pear Pop-Tart to go with the cheese plate. They came to us with that idea. And after a few tries, we just couldn't get it to work. Pears, the consistency just did not work in our
Okay.
Pop-Tart. So Jeremy had a brilliant idea. He thought, wait a minute, why don't we reverse it? Put the cheese in the Pop-Tart, because it would probably hold up a lot better. And
Yeah.
maybe they serve it with a pear preparation.
Okay.
Which we brought that idea to them. And, a few tries later, back and forth, there we have it. We came up with a blue cheese Pop-Tart. They served it with walnut crumble and poached pears. And
It was
But
really
That
now
was
you're
really
on
popular.
their menu, right? And they have a decent following in San Antonio. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
They
So
did.
now you're giving them a solution. You're upping their game. And in return, I don't want to make assumptions, but I'm assuming they gave you a nod on the menu, or they mentioned you, or was there anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
always.
exactly. So like
Yeah.
you're helping them. You're helping them elevate their game. In return,
Yes.
they're promoting your business and helping create further,
Yeah,
awareness.
exactly.
And we can't look at restaurants in our business or in our communities as competition. Like, are they literally competition? Yeah, we're all fighting for the same business, right?
Right.
But it's those people that are willing to look beyond that to support each other and
Exactly.
take care of each other's well-being that always
Exactly.
rise to the top.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
I
We
think
definitely feel that in our community. The San Antonio restaurant community is very, very
Yeah.
close.
But you got to give before you get. And if you close yourself off, and if you don't make yourself approachable, and you aren't willing to collaborate, you're cutting yourself short of that opportunity, right?
right. Exactly.
So we haven't even talked about actually opening your restaurant yet, but I'm loving this conversation. You guys are sharing some great stuff. So, where did you end up settling on your first spot? Like, not settling, but what your choice?
It really wasn't even a choice. We had a regular customer who said, "I've got the perfect property for you,"
Okay.
and showed us the property, and it was a condemned house.
Okay.
And we're like, "There's never in a million years we could afford to make that."
Yeah.
And we kind of just brushed it off because it was. I could show you a picture. It was very dilapidated. Anyways, and then they reapproached us, said, "No, really," and they made it. Between Charlie and our landlord, they made a deal on what they would take care of on home or business improvement, property improvement,
Yeah.
and what we would take care of, and it fit in our budget.
Yeah.
And we had the cutest little bakery in Texas at one point.
Yeah.
It was,
That's awesome. So you mentioned earlier that you don't have to open a brick and mortar for $500,000. Do you mind sharing what you're able to get that first spot open for?
I think it was right around $150,000.
A whole house, $150,000.
I mean, we
Well,
had
that was our share.
our share.
Okay.
No,
Right.
the landlords did. They basically took care of everything on the outside,
Okay.
and we took care of the inside stuff.
How long did it take? Well, did you guys do a lot of the work yourself, or was it all contracted?
We were very lucky. Charlie has a lot of friends in the artist community. We had woodworkers that
Again,
came.
collaboration, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
this one was. It was amazing. There was a
Completely.
bunch of sheds in the back that they had repurposed the wood and made all the cabinets. We had glassblower friends that blew knobs for all the
For all the
drawer pulls
cabinets.
and
Yeah.
I mean, it was an amazing collaboration.
Beautiful. So you guys open. You have this foundation of a local following. Another benefit of starting small. People always want to start with their brick and mortar. They get investors. They sell their idea. They get $1 million. They open their 200-seat location. Crickets,
Yeah.
right? Whereas what you guys did, you started where you could, small. You developed relationships. You found people. You have proof of concept. You're doing market testing, right?
Yes.
You're fine-tuning your recipes, and then you have this following. You open, right? And now you have awareness, and people are excited. Like, do you want to compound on what I'm sharing? I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I'm just kind of
No, you're
summarizing.
completely right.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a community around the bakery before we even had a bakery.
Yeah.
And it made the transition going in. I mean, our first day open, it was a great day. It wasn't crickets, you know.
You're
Yeah,
good.
sorry.
No, you're good.
There was a ton of people the first day, the next day,
Right.
the
So
next day.
you guys opened your first brick and mortar 2012?
That was, oh gosh.
So
I'm
I
not
work
good with
chronologically, and I
years.
don't
Yeah.
forget sometimes not everybody is
Yeah.
wired like I am.
I think so. I think it
It's
was.
been a blur, so
2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
excuse us.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you guys to go from 1 to 2? And was that Charlie kind of encouraging you to expand?
Well, Charlie and the Pearl. So when we were at our first brick and mortar, we were on 511 East Grayson, just on the other side of Broadway, across from the whole Pearl Brewery development.
Okay.
And they were still very young in those days. I think there were only 3 restaurants on premise.
So real quick, not to take you off track, what is the Pearl for people who aren't completely familiar with San Antonio?
Yes. It's so it used to be the Pearl Beer Brewery.
Okay.
And when it shut down, it's now a privately owned and developed mixed-use property. So it's
Kind of culinary themed.
Yes,
There's
it's
a
culinary
CIA
destination.
campus and.
Gotcha. Thank you. So keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So at that point, the Pearl had approached us. They were looking for tenants that they wanted to go in there, and they were really strict about how they were curating the property. They had a vision of how they wanted it to turn out. And they invited us to go in there. They wanted a bakery. We were their first choice. If we turned them down, they would get another bakery to go in there. And at that point in time, I think both of us agreed that our business was too small to be able to sustain someone else going in there, with that kind of firepower. So
you were afraid, let me make sure I understand. You were afraid that if you passed up on the opportunity, the competition, the other person that took that opportunity would smother you out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We were a little brick and mortar bakery in a little craftsman house,
Couple blocks.
Yeah, in a neighborhood,
Yeah,
a couple blocks from this.
So this is
big
right in your
development.
neighborhood.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So we thought it was a good opportunity to take, and we took it. And opening at Pearl really propelled a lot of our growth
Okay.
past the little house.
How so?
Well, the Pearl is a destination. Like when people come to San Antonio, they stop at the Pearl Brewery.
So now you're getting international acknowledgement because you're tying your brand with all these other successful brands.
Right.
The cream's literally rising to the top right now.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that it's international, but
When people come to San Antonio, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? Well, you got to go to the Pearl,
yes.
right? And so you're getting this exposure maybe you wouldn't have otherwise got in being standing alone.
Absolutely.
Getting
It's
more
a
foot
unique
traffic.
space because
Yes.
locals go there too.
Yeah.
As well as tourists. It's always busy.
Yeah. Okay. So how far was it? Miles from? You said it was just a couple blocks. You said so, half a mile distance, less.
It wasn't even half a mile.
Yeah,
wow.
not even half
Yes.
a mile.
Okay, so that makes sense. So you kept your first location and you opened up a half mile down the street.
Well, we shut down our first location
Okay.
once we moved everything
Okay.
to Pearl, and
Opened a commissary
Right.
a couple
Okay.
blocks away.
Okay. So did you sell that?
We
Or-
held on to
You
it
held
for
on
a
to it?
couple of
Held on to it.
years
Okay.
Yeah,
What was the
but-
reason for that?
because we put so much work and love into it, and it was our intention to do a concept there. We just didn't know what.
Yeah.
Right.
We had
And-
played around with the donut shop for a long time.
yeah,
Got you.
that was an idea. But I think at that point our hands were just so full because
Yeah.
when we moved to Pearl, we walked into something we did not expect and that we weren't prepared for. It was just so incredibly busy that we didn't have time to look up. So eventually we had to give up the spot. We never owned it anyway, so we
Okay.
just terminated our
So that
lease.
wasn't necessarily your second location. It was just you just took your first location and relocated.
Yes.
And when did you start working multiple units? How long did it take you to get to that point?
So once we had the commissary kitchen, we saw an opportunity there.
So you had the commissary. So you had the Pearl location. Then the next move for you was develop the commissary location.
We actually did the commissary first.
Okay.
So we were open and ready for once the Pearl opened.
Yeah.
So once Pearl opened, we could just transition
Gotcha.
seamlessly to Pearl.
So was the commissary, were you guys thinking ahead saying we want to do more than just this one location, but we know this one location? Were you trying to kind of build your framing before?
No, I don't think we had thought that far ahead, to be honest with you. Just the rent for Pearl is so high. I could have filled that whole space with bakery equipment.
Got you.
And so we ended up paying cheaper rent, filled that with baking, so we could get seats at Pearl.
Okay. Beautiful. So any key lessons? I mean, we've been talking a lot. You're now at 5 locations. I'm a little curious at how you guys, being 2 technicians, you eventually had to attract onto yourself people like Thomas Keller had done, right? And why he's able to operate at the level he operates. When were you able to start to replace yourself? So are you guys still, you're sitting here, it's lunchtime, so the people back there must know what they're doing, right? Take us through that process of being able to replace yourself with others so you could scale to 5 locations. And you have locations in Austin, Texas now, hour and a half drive. So take us through that.
We have a great staff, and our staff now is probably the best that it's ever been, and does allow us to step away and even go on vacation occasionally. It was a hard process, especially for Anne to step away and give control to somebody else. But we trust our people, and you have to have that trust with your staff. And they make mistakes, and we have to be able to pick them up when they fall down.
Yeah. So it's, I'm actually going through this myself. Casey's sitting right here. Casey's my first partner to Restaurant Unstoppable, and I'll be the first person to admit to give somebody else that you spend 7 years of your life developing this brand, this reputation, and to hand that to somebody and say, like, I trust you to represent what we stand for. Give me advice right now. Like, what advice do you have for me to let go of some of this stuff and to be generous with trust? Ooh, put you guys on the spot.
I know.
He's sitting right there. So
yeah, it's difficult. And it's a matter of trust, and trust is something foundational that you have to build on with a person over time. So I just think if you find who you think is the right person, build that relationship with them, have that rapport, know that you'll be able to trust them, know that, they can make a decision on your behalf when you're not around, and it might not always be the right thing, but you trust them and you know that they made that decision to the best of their judgment at that point in time.
Yeah. And it sounds like you struggled more with like letting go a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
What was that inner dialogue for you? What was your biggest fear?
My biggest fear? Stuff not coming out right.
Yeah. So what things did you do to help your people make sure things were coming out right?
So training, a lot of training, a lot of troubleshooting if they make a mistake. Also repetition. You do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Everyone gets better at it, And we also do a lot of cross-training, so we can be sure that if someone else is gone, another person can come in and, fill that spot. Maybe not to the same degree of proficiency that person who stepped out is able to do that job, but someone can, in a pinch.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, baking is a science, and it's probably one of the most difficult things to train somebody else how to stay consistent with exactly how you would do it, because there's so many little things that could go wrong to make it come out the exact same every time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no good fixes when something gets messed up. Like
So
a savory cookie, and you can, salvage something.
So you guys have to be a master of process, right?
Yes.
Step by step. So what does that training look like?
Reading the recipe. I will say that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because it's just something that's easy to overlook. It's a lot of words and numbers on a sheet of paper, and your eyes get fatigued after a while. But you have to read your recipe, know the process, and also we always tell everybody, if there's any doubt in your mind, ask.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a stupid question.
Yes. And what was the other one-liner you guys had? Like, if there's a question,
there's no question.
There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So we kind of alluded earlier, you guys started like your first unique concept aside from your bakery, the donut shop. The name's escaping me. I apologize.
Oh, Maybelle's.
Maybelle's. Thank you
yeah.
very much. When did you open Maybelle's?
We opened it.
Again, back to the years. I
Yeah,
apologize.
3 years ago, I
okay.
believe, 2017.
And that was a spin-off from a collaboration that you guys maybe you found in, like a skill or a niche that you could carve out in the market that wasn't being served or underserved.
Yes, and apart from that, early on, after I just met Jeremy, he told me he always wanted a donut shop. That was what he wanted. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this must be a little sensitive for you because you guys had to close the shop only a few months ago.
We made the decision to close. It was a strain on our resources. We didn't have to close. It was paying the bills. But it was just a drain on our resources.
So take us through that. Like, how do you make that tough call? Because this is your baby. This was your ultimate vision, your dream, the thing you always wanted to do. How do you let go of that?
It wasn't easy. It was a tough decision to make. I think one, we were maybe a couple years too late getting into the donut game.
Maybe missed the wave a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. And then the location, we were at Pearl, but we're in a food hall, and we're the only breakfast place in the food hall, and people would have to walk. I think donuts is something that you pick up on the way to the office, or just wasn't a great location for that. For the morning. Most of our business was like late afternoon, evening. And so, we just, I think we wanted to focus on the bakery and what we were doing there, and it was kind of just draining us.
And apart from that, the bakery is just right across the street. So we decided, you know what? We still have a venue to sell a few donuts.
We still are selling a few donuts. So.
Okay, nice. Yeah, because I noticed you guys kept those. So you were able to kind of keep the legacy of Maybelle's under your roof and do what you love, your donuts, right?
Yeah.
So the big lessons to me, that it sounds like when you're thinking of a location, does the food, the habits of eating the food match the people that are going to be at this place? So with donuts, you mentioned, usually on the way to the office or like a drive-through situation to grab and go. And when you go into a food hall, it's more of an experiential, like let's go to the food hall and hang out. You're not going to stop at the food hall to pick up donuts. You got to find parking, you got to walk so far. So just keeping do the habits that are associated with this meal, are they conducive with what we're offering as far as accessibility?
Right.
Is a question you have to ask yourself.
I
agree with that. 100%.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
So what else is the lesson? Are you going to be able to spread yourself, and are you spreading yourself too thin by? I mean, we hear on the show a lot, do one thing really well. So when you started doing this other thing, it pulled from your ability to do one thing really well. Is that what I'm hearing, or is it?
I think so. Being spread between 5 stores and a donut concept and a commissary kitchen, definitely. I think both Ann and I and Charlie were feeling spread very thin.
So how do you feel now, 5 months later, after closing down? It must have been a tough pill to swallow, but...
It is. I read comments, we brought donuts back. We stopped them during the start of the COVID outbreak. And we brought them back when we sold out, like, really quick. And we got a lot of comments on social media about how much they miss these donuts, and you're like, oh, like,
who knows? Maybe the future has another donut shop. In the
perhaps.
But, is there anything we have not discussed up to this point? This is my time to let you guys kind of whatever's near and dear to your heart. If there's a lesson you want to pay forward to the next generation of operators that hasn't been communicated, now's the time to get it out.
The restaurant industry has changed a lot, tremendously, since we first started. We started in old school kitchens, where, you were expected to clock out and keep doing your work and not get paid for it. You were expected to not say anything if you're experiencing any sort of conflict at work,
pain, discomfort, or anything like that. Right,
exactly. And being a woman, it was even more so. You were just expected to swallow everything that was thrown your way.
Sexist comments.
A lot of sexist comments. Yeah, and you just had to live with it. Yeah. That was the world that I found when I first walked into restaurants.
I'm curious, and maybe this is going a little too far, but what's the worst thing you've ever heard? I don't want to like rub sand in a wound or anything like that, but what's the worst thing? Just to give perspective of what things are actually said.
Oh, I mean, a lot of old school chefs objectify women. Yeah, there's a lot of language out there that I don't even want to say.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're expected to just not react, take it, and go on with your job like nothing happened, you know? Yeah. But things have changed a lot since then for the better. And it continues to change.
I'll let future restaurateurs know that you have to stay flexible and stay fluid and change and know your audience and I don't know, change with the times. And
yeah, for
be able
sure.
to do that.
For sure. So and Casey actually corrected me the last interview I had. I didn't even talk about COVID, and I almost did it again. I think I'm just trying to get away from it already. But I don't think it's really worth talking about how you've adapted, because I hope you would have adapted by now, right? I think that ship has kind of sailed. And I think you should be going to your state, like whatever your government's telling you to do locally is what you should be doing, because it's different across different states. So I don't really want to get into that. But what I do want to get into is, what do you think the future looks like? Not necessarily how you want to how you're reacting to the current situation, but how can we be proactive to come out? How can we choose to come back a certain way? What does that look like for you?
Well, I think online ordering is going to be a much stronger outlet than before.
Yeah.
When we started offering that platform at the beginning of the quarantine, I really wasn't convinced that it would stick around.
Yeah.
But now I think it's a comfortable way for people to order and get their food.
Yep.
And we're keeping that platform.
So were you offering online ordering and pickup or delivery before this?
We were offering both.
Delivery services. But
deliveries especially, yeah. But it just wasn't as strong as during
you were
the virus.
prepared for the virus because you had these systems in place already.
Somewhat.
Okay.
We signed up with a lot more delivery apps when this happened.
Okay.
We changed our online ordering platform because the one that we had previously was not as user-friendly.
We don't have to say what the other one was, but which one did you end up going with?
So right now we're going with Square Online Store.
Okay.
Right. It's a lot more user-friendly, and we can integrate it with our internal POS and inventory systems.
So were you using Square before?
We were.
So you were using some other third party.
Yes.
And then at this point, I think Square they launched Square for restaurants. So
Yes.
was that an element of the new platform that you were able just to pivot to?
I am actually
We're
in the
transitioning
process of transitioning to that.
And how's that going for you guys?
Really good,
Okay.
actually, really good. So, it's one of those things too. Things change over time. New technology comes out,
Yeah.
new systems, and it never stops. You just have to keep moving with it. Yeah.
And are you going to be changing anything about your business permanently to be ready for the future?
I mean, if we open any other locations or if we remodel certain locations, definitely the design layout and how things are set up.
To be more maybe suitable for pickup?
Yeah,
Okay.
suitable for pickup, suitable to come in and exit immediately.
Gotcha.
Less dine-in, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
Does that
think so.
concern you that we are evolving to not do dine-in, that we're trying to get away from the social aspect? I think restaurants just play such a crucial role. Like, we don't go to church as much as we used to. Like, when we go to socialize, when we go to be with each other, it's usually at a restaurant or a bar.
Right, exactly.
I'm worried that we're not really paying attention to the consequences of everybody all at once adapting to be non-social,
Right.
Is there a threat that we're not really considering by reacting the way we are?
I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we don't know, but humans are social beings
We need
innately.
each other.
We
Yeah.
need each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely one aspect of the restaurant that was taken from us during this time, but I think it's going to come back.
It's just a
you
bunch
know,
of little
in the
things
future.
that like we don't even consider. Like even like wearing these masks right now, I
Right.
realize that we're trying to be safe. We're all trying to do our part. But even just for me trying to interview you, like I'm listening to your words, but I also want to be able to see what your face is telling me.
Yeah.
And there's these little things that we take for granted when we start doing all this stuff. It compounds, and I wonder if we're aware of it. Is the reaction to the virus worse than the virus itself?
Right.
You know, like social and emotional like well-being is a thing. You
Right.
know, we gotta be mindful of this.
Right.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying you guys are doing anything
Yeah.
wrong by having. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like we as a collective need to be mindful of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
and there have been pandemics in the past. There will be more in the future. Yeah, I don't know. What's happened before has changed
Yeah.
how we do things now.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So the last question before we go to the speed round, the mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. How have you guys transformed? Who are you today versus the folks you guys were getting started in this industry?
Gosh. I think we're definitely more I think we're definitely stronger business owners. You know, when we started this thing, we were pastry chefs.
Yeah.
We had never, well, I had never done management at that point. Both of us, and for both of us, I can say nothing to this extent.
Yeah. So how are you a better manager? Give me something specific that you do now that you didn't do before.
I used to yell a lot. I don't do as much
I
of
can't
that
picture
anymore.
you being a yeller. You seem like a very soft-spoken dude, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Why
I
doesn't
used
that
to be
work?
very intense. It doesn't work. I mean, you can see people check out once you start. I was very emotional and very passionate about what I did, and we also kind of came up in that world too, with pan-throwing chefs and screaming and getting yelled at.
You can yell as loud as you want. The only thing that they're hearing is the inner dialogue of how badly they want to hit you in the face.
Right.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it took me years to learn that, and I'm not perfect, but I prefer to teach and inspire as much as possible, rather than yell.
I love it. Awesome stuff.
Also, developing processes for everything, no matter how small the task may seem. I think we've gotten a lot better about that. You know, if you have clear direction and a clear process, that helps everyone do a good job because everyone wants to do a good job.
Yes, I love it. Great stuff. Did you want to add one more?
I was just going to say, there's often, I think, more freedom when you have constraints than, you know, when you have these walls put up. There's more freedom than
a free-for-all.
Yeah.
You know, people want to know that they're doing. We need to know that we're satisfying you. We need to know that we're doing a good job. And when we have aiming points, when we can hit our mark and know that we did it right, then we get a little release of, I forget the name. It's a chemical. But we get that chemical release.
Oh, endorphin?
Yeah, we get rewarded. And we need these little rewards. We need to know we're doing good. We need that security of knowing we're doing our job right.
Right.
And that's what systems, processes, and standards provide.
Yes, exactly. And being on the other end of the table now as a manager, you forget that, you know? Yeah, like when you were starting out as a pastry cook, you needed that acknowledgement.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're back, and the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor? A habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success? Ladies first. Take it away, Anne.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. I'm horrible at this.
Jeremy, go for it.
hard work.
Hard work, and back at you.
Approachability.
Okay, what's your biggest weakness?
I'm stubborn.
Jeremy.
Cookies.
What is one question you ask or thing you look for when you're building your team, when you're interviewing people? Like, what are you looking for?
Someone who's a team player.
How do you know?
Well, they spend a few hours with us in the kitchen. If they're willing to listen to instruction and, you know, shadow and work with other people, you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, are you cool with that answer, or do you want to give your own?
Yeah, I was going to say driven, but I mean, kind of the same.
Yeah, I feel you. What is your biggest challenge today that's not COVID? Okay, you can talk about COVID if you want to. Anything coming to mind?
I think our challenges are always standards and keeping up those standards professionally, be it from our staff, our management, or our food.
How are you dealing with that challenge? How are you overcoming it?
Just constant monitoring.
Right,
We're
a
just
day at a
constantly-
time.
Yes.
A day at a time.
Share one code of conduct or behavior. I'm talking core values, a way to be, a way to act that you teach your team.
Integrity.
What is integrity to you?
Um,
I'm putting pressure on you, Anne.
I know you are. You are standing up for what you believe in.
Yes.
Acting and acting what you say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to compound on that, Jeremy?
On integrity?
Yeah.
No, I think you covered it. Doing the right thing even when nobody's watching.
Yes, I love that. What is one uncommon standard of service you teach your team? So this is something that's common in the four walls of your business to go above and beyond to serve, but not common throughout the industry.
Discipline. Having the discipline to not put out product that is not good enough.
Yes, I love it. What is one book that's a must read to make us a better person or restaurant operator? You can mention
It's I love The Goal.
The Goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good business book, and it's helped me in my personal life.
Beautiful.
I like that book a lot.
In what way did it help you in your personal life?
Wow. I'd have to think
I don't
about it
ask
for-
the easy questions.
Yeah, I
man.
know.
That's how-
It just kind of it helps you to
live intentionally. I mean, I think the word goal.
yeah, problem solve in a way that directs you in an efficient way.
Yeah.
To
Do you know the author by any chance?
I could look it up for you.
All right,
when
we'll
you
make
ask
sure
Dan
that-
the next tough question.
Awesome. The next question I have for you guys is, what is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
Well enough or often enough? Oh, gosh. I'm horrible at these speed runs.
You're good. Go for it.
I know we as restaurant owners and operators, I can't speak for anybody else, that we don't give positive feedback enough.
Yes.
It's very easy for us to get on somebody when they make a mistake or when something's not done up to our standard, but we often forget to give praise.
Yeah. And I'm guilty of that myself, I'll be honest. Name one service you've hired or outsourced. So this is something not necessarily a technology, but if you're maybe like a designer would be an example, an architect would be an example, a brand expert would be an example.
Right. Graphic design.
Who do you use?
We use Jamie Stolarski.
All right, Jamie, there you go. You got a little bit of a shout out. Look out for the business.
He's so good.
Is he?
Yeah.
He's really good.
What is one piece of technology you've adopted within the four walls of your business that's had a huge impact on communications, operations, bottom line, anything along those lines?
Communications apps, I think, like Slack.
Okay. Is that what you guys are using?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
how has that impacted your business?
Oh, communication.
Yeah.
Communication is a big part of our day-to-day operations. A lot of times when things go south, it's because there was a breakdown in communication.
Absolutely.
So tools that help us communicate easily with each other, I'm all for that.
Beautiful. Do you want to add something to that?
No, I agree completely.
Were you able to find your book?
I did.
Nice.
Eliu M. Gold Rat.
All right, I see it. We'll make sure that we link to that one. Thank you very much. And this is the last question. It's a doozy. Are you ready for it?
Are my what?
It's a doozy, the question, meaning it's
Okay.
it's a tough one.
Oh, okay.
If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and for your legacy. I should say the good of the industry. what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be? Oh, this is a deep peer into each other's eyes.
I know, this is.
Yeah. What's the first one?
Always strive to be better.
That's 1. You got a second one, Jeremy?
No.
I'm passing the baton back to Anne. I'm just going to make one up just from the story, listening to you guys. Never settle for anything less
Absolutely.
than what the expectation is.
Absolutely.
And that's come up a bunch of times.
Yeah. And
Number 3. You can't pull the audience for this one.
don't lose yourself in your work.
Beautiful. I've loved this conversation, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, to share your story, to share your knowledge, to share your mentorship, and to do it during a time where we're kind of pushing the envelope right now. And I realize it's a little awkward to be doing things in person, but I feel like if we're ever going to get back to that, some people have to take a chance, right? We got to
Absolutely
push the envelope, and you guys did that for us today. Thank you. It's always better to be in person, in my opinion. We wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. So that's how I found you. Christina Zhao called you out. We love Christina here at Restaurant Unstoppable. She was a great guest. Who do you guys respect and admire? Think would make a great guest mentor like you made for us today?
Oh.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of
You can give me a couple.
Here or Austin?
Anywhere.
Peter Sipstein.
Peter? Is that? Did you have more that you want? I don't want to cut you short. I'll settle with one. I don't want you to. Peter.
Oh, okay.
Peter, look out. I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show.
He's a great person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how can we connect with you guys? Maybe we want to order your pastries or get some of those donuts.
Sure, yeah. You can visit our website, bakerylorraine.com. There will be a link there to order for curbside.
Okay. And maybe want to come join your team. What's the best way to connect?
Again, check our website. We have employment applications on there.
Beautiful. You guys have been great. Did you want to add something? It looks like you have a...
Oh, no.
Okay. You've been great. Again, just thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, your knowledge, your mentorship. There is no questioning. You are unstoppable. Cheers. If you enjoyed this video, please help us out. You can do it by liking, sharing, subscribing, and hitting that bell icon. It really helps out. And don't forget, there's a complete archive of every episode with show notes at restaurantunstoppable.com.